Happy Wednesday out there, Team 42. It's your skipper here, Darius Delta, present our macro minute for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. As always, we'll start with the executive summary from today's leadoff morning note. If you would like to review the analysis supporting these conclusions, as well as what specific changes you need to make in your portfolio to remain on the right side of market risk, you need to be a client of 42 Macro. So today's key macro question is, should bulls throw in the towel? Our answers are, amid the tariff whiplash over the last few days and near record policy uncertainty having already contributed to a contraction in business investment, a growing chorus of investors are asking, should I just throw in the towel for now? In today's note, we list 7 reasons why the market regime may persist in a risk-on condition over the next 1 to 2 quarters. We also list 4 reasons why it may transition to a risk-off market regime in short order. Lastly, we list the 5 interconnected hawkish reasons why we currently anticipate a trending risk-off inflation market regime this summer. Regardless of outcome, it is clear from the violent whipsaw price action over the past 2 months that the distribution of probable economic outcomes is as wide as we have warned about in recent months. While we still think risk assets are likely to grind higher over the next 1 to 2 quarters, we are open to the possibility that the good Trump agenda policies, specifically tax cuts and deregulation, were fully priced in from the time betting markets started signaling a Republican sweep was a high probability in September through the January highs. That means what is left to be digested by market participants are tariffs contributing to a stronger US dollar and slower or negative global liquidity growth, border closures contributing to faster unit labor cost inflation and slower corporate profits growth, and a general sense of chaos emanating from DC and Mar-a-Lago. Be water, my friends. Listen to the market. We developed our KISS and Dr. Mo signals to assist investors in doing exactly that. Transitioning to our 42 macro dashboard, as always, we'll wrap up with a question from our community. This one's regarding Doge impacts on the market. It says the recent shutdown of multiple agencies, including USAID, along with Doge's takeover of the federal payment system, is triggering significant layoffs among government contractors before any meaningful cuts have even begun in the roughly 3 million strong federal workforce. Are the ongoing funding freezes, projected federal spending cuts of $500 billion to $1 trillion, and expected deep reductions in government employment substantial enough to materially impact the labor market? If so, how might these shifts influence the Federal Reserve's policy decisions in the coming quarters? Appreciation GD and the 42 Macro team for their commitment to making high quality research accessible to retail investors. That's my commitment to you guys as long as I'm on this side of the grass. So, Lord willing, I'll be on this side of the grass for a while. So I'll start by saying, excellent question. It's our belief that Doge can probably get up to $500 billion to $1 trillion in federal expenditure reductions. Now, again, I've been very clear about this for months now. Expenditure reductions do not equal deficit reduction. They're still going to extend and expand the Trump tax cuts, most notably extending the raising the SALT deduction, adding lowering corporate taxes further. We're going to blow a hole in the budget deficit from a revenue standpoint relative to the baseline of current law. Now, again, don't confuse that by saying, revenues are going to go down. They may not go down. They may continue to grow nominally, but they will grow nominally at a much, much slower rate relative to the baseline of current law, which doesn't have corporate tax cuts, an increase in the SALT deduction, or an extension and expansion of the individual income tax provisions of the TCJA which expire on December 31st. So getting back to this, if they do get $500 billion to $1 trillion, it's kind of hard to gauge how much that's going to impact employment specifically, because you could see some of the $500 billion to $1 trillion actually coming out of some of the entitlement spending programs, particularly the ones that are not ring fenced from the Doge process, specifically Medicaid, which is healthcare for poor people, which I spent a very large percentage of my life on, or welfare, which is income subsidies for poor people, which I spent a very large percentage of my life on. So we know those cuts are coming. Who knows how big and deep they're going to be, given that President Trump has, voted in office on a populist agenda. But the key takeaway is that not every dollar is going to contribute to a reduction in the federal workforce. But if you just wanted to kind of do some rough back of the envelope math on this, $500 billion to $1 trillion represents 7 to 14% of federal expenditures. So just assume, if they hit those targets, you're talking about 7 to 14% less federal expenditures as a function of this Doge cutting process. Now, other categories of federal expenditures, particularly the ones that are ring fenced from the Doge process, are still growing. They compounded at a plus. The 61% of the federal budget that is completely ring fenced from the Doge process, specifically Medicaid, which is healthcare for senior citizens, Social Security, which is income subsidies for senior citizens, national defense, which we estimate will likely be ring fenced from that, and then net interest. Those categories have grown at a compound 13% annual growth rate over the past 3 years. So again, that's 61% of the federal budget growing at a compound 13% over the last 4 years. And both demographic challenges and the fact that we're going to refinance, roughly $10 trillion of U.S. debt into a higher interest rate regime this year. Those two dynamics indicate that 61% of the federal government expenditures that are ring fenced from Doge are going to continue to grow at a fast compounded growth rate, quite possibly for the foreseeable future. So just because Doge may cut 7 to 14% of the federal budget doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see a 7 to 14% expenditure reduction in the federal budget, federal expenditures rather. And so just be aware of that. But just kind of putting some back of the envelope math on this. The 7 to 14% of the 3.01 million federal employees represents roughly a 211 to 421-22 decline in federal employment. So I wouldn't say it's a drop in the bucket relative to the broader non-farm payroll. It's somewhere north of 160 million people are working currently in terms of the non-farm payroll. So it's not a significant drop. It's not a big number as it relates to overall non-farm payrolls, but ultimately you're talking about people, the unemployment rate potentially rising as a function of this, which will ultimately insulate the Fed's modestly dovish reaction function, at least for a little while longer, until core PCE starts to reaccelerate again, which our model has it starting to pick up in May of this year. So we'll see if that's correct. And if that is correct, we could be having a very different conversation about what neutral is, how restrictive the Fed is or isn't this summer. That may not feel good from the perspective of asset markets, particularly if we are allowed to persist in a risk-on condition between now and then. So we're wrapping up there. Darius Dale presenting our macro minute for February 4th, 2024. Everyone have a wonderful day out there. Best of luck. We'll catch you back here tomorrow. Cheers.